Great. Well, thank you for those of you attending our second session today for Advocacy Talks, which is a series of seminars that we started, at least a year ago, and will continue to provide information to parents and professionals about topics of interest and need. So we're very excited. Today was a double one. Right now we have with us, Beth Ann McConnell from the IU, Capital Area IU. She is the interagency coordinator, social worker. She's on the Seaport Board of Directors, and on my department's Ed Committee, we keep her busy. She does everything. And then Lisa Kennedy is a family support specialist from the Department of Human Services in York. I've heard you're on the York City School Board. Is that true too? And they're both family members. So it's a personal thing, as I am. So I understand that. But we really appreciate you coming today. It's been a wild year for families and professionals, and not taking care of yourself can be an easy thing to do. It's just easier to keep going. And again, if any of you are not on our mailing list, please let us know. So I'm going to give it over to Beth Ann and Lisa.
Well, hello, everybody. And I do want to say that Lisa and I always laugh because when we do this training, we do sometimes need reminded ourselves some of the strategies to help ourselves when as family members. So we just want to let you know, we're here, we're going to share some of the things that we know are really wonderful to use, but we also have to help and check in with each other at times to remind ourselves to do what we say here. So, but thank you everybody for being here. To get started, if you want to put in chat, I see there's like 11 people. Yeah, let's do chat for now. If everybody can just let me know, like, kind of who's here. I see names, of course, coming across these little bubbles, but just one little thing that you want to put in chat about yourself, about you. Lisa, what are you thinking? Like something about what, I don't know, come up with something really fun there, Lisa.
About something you love to do for fun.
Yeah, thank you.
So put in the chat box, if you would please, your name and what role you're representing today. If you're here as a family member, parent, grandparent, what have you, or if you're here in a professional capacity, or if you serve in dual roles, as a lot of us do. And then also add something fun you like to do. So I guess we need to answer the same question. So something fun I like to do, a toss up between traveling and I'm a cake decorator, so I love to do that. So that's two things I do for fun. And you, Beth Ann?
Yeah, definitely the beach. Anytime I can get there. I've even been known to do a day trip to Brigantine, New Jersey, during the time that I took off work, ran to the beach as fast as I could get there, and got back to pick up my youngest son at daycare. So that might have been a silly thing, but to me, it was like energizing for me. And I'm seeing Megan Hartman. I knew your name. She said she reached out to me recently to join our local task force. So I'm like, I know her name. So thank you, Megan, for reminding me. I'm excited. And I'm seeing some cake decorating too, Lisa. I love doing that too. That's exciting. Oh my goodness, painting peg dolls. Oh wow, that's neat. And then Allegheny Network office employee and a mom of an autistic child. Hygiene. And then mom and daughter from CASA, and we're driving back from Florida. Oh, wow. My youngest son's in Florida right now, visiting some friends for 2 weeks. And thank you, everybody. Okay, so Lisa, I'm gonna share the screen. And we always love how these things really go in real life. They work well when you're not on here. I know, I'm gonna switch to the other view. Is that good?
Here we go.
Okay. All right.
Go back one, or are you in the second slide?
Just that was the introduction.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So which picture best describes you? And we can either, if you want to come off of mute, if you want to just say, anybody wants to say which one their best describes, that would be great. I certainly know which one always fits me in this one.
I have two. This is Nancy Weigel.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, the mountain scene, but then the roller coaster.
Oh. So sometimes that one, I think that one always, like, it depends on my mood. I'm like, yeah, the roller coaster, because that's how my life is going. Or it could just because I really just want fun. Like, is that how you are? Or you just really love roller coasters?
More because my life is just like a roller
Yeah,
coaster.
okay. Yep.
But for fun, I like, it looks like Mount Rainier.
Thank
Just
you.
peaceful.
I want to go there, wherever that is. Okay, anybody else?
Jean put the beach in the chat box.
Oh, thank you.
So she's relaxed and nice and calm.
All
This
right,
is
and thank you.
Holly. I'd like it to be the beach, but it's usually the city or the roller coaster.
True for me too. Thank you, Holly. And Lisa, thank you for checking, or Holly, for the chat, because right now I can't see it. I have faces and the PowerPoint, so thank you.
Well, Kelly actually says she's a little bit of all of those pictures every day, and I know exactly what you mean and how you're feeling. And even though we may have different experiences, yes, I have all of those, probably two, probably in a half of a day.
Minute by minute, right? Thank you, Lisa. All right. Anyone else before I move on?
Susan agrees with Kelly. She's the same way.
Thank you.
I like
Megan says she is the food. We always want to go to the kitchen to create a meal or snack to decompress. I like that.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on. All right, now I did notice in my last session, Kelly, I believe it was you that said about the oxygen mask. So with this training being about preventing or helping with burnout, caregiver burnout, preventing that. But it's also just here, we wanted to say, like, remembering your own self-care, and we'll talk more about that, while supporting your children during difficult times. So this is saying, place the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping small children and others who may need your assistance. I think we as caregivers really forget that if we're not, and we'll get more into this, but if we're not taking care of us, we really cannot take care of your child or your family member. So in this case, like, if you're not able, you can't help your child in that situation that's up there on the screen if you are passed out from not getting enough oxygen. So just thinking of that, that's what we can help you remember, because it is most often forgot, is to take care of ourselves. Would you agree, Lisa?
Most definitely, which is why I'm glad you shared our caveat at the beginning that, we do this training in several different capacities. Self-care is so important, but it is something that Bethany and I struggle with as well, because we are so busy, doing for others in a lot of cases, not just our children. So it is important to put the mask on yourself first. I've gotten better over the years. My children are adults now, but the level of care has not decreased. And so it's important to be able to recognize what we really need to do for ourselves in order to be really available and present for our children and for others.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about why we're here. And we've mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about self-care, and we're going to really highlight the burnout part, because I don't know about you, but this is an area a lot of times that isn't really covered often enough. And especially for families that have children or family members in general with any kind of special need, no matter what it is, it really is a challenge to not reach a point of burnout. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to recognize what our strengths are despite the challenges that you may be facing, or despite the difficulty you may be engaging in the process of trying to take care of yourself. And so really taking a look at how to manage those challenges and uncertainties while you've been experiencing them. Particularly, I'm going to say in the last year and a half or so, living through a pandemic, which is different literally for everybody. We're going to recognize that the ways you dealt with stress before the pandemic could be absolutely different than what you needed to do to take care of yourself and or your family during the pandemic. And we'll talk a little bit more about that along the way as well. There'll be some takeaway ideas to help you find some best tips, keeping in mind that we will share lots of examples of ways in which you can engage or do some self-care for yourself, but also remembering our children need self-care too. That isn't really our focus in today, but it's important that they need self-care too. But also knowing that with some of the examples that we may share, everybody's journey is different. Everyone's experience is different. So what may work for you may not work for your neighbor, may not work for your sibling, may not work for others. So it is absolutely a plan that you can put together to develop for yourself and or for your family. And then to have a place to hear what others are experiencing and take away ideas from each other. So we will have an opportunity along the way to share. And there'll be oftentimes we'll ask you to turn on your mic since we have that ability, and share examples or ask questions along the way as well.
Sorry, got to figure out where my, oh, there it is. Okay. And if you noticed our sneak little trick at the beginning, we already learned a couple ways that people are helping themselves that you can be shared now to others. You know, their book reading, the being able to, the mountains, the beaches, the different ideas, but some things don't have to be so big. I mean, it can be like the book reading or find things. So we're being a little sneaky with asking that question. So Lisa, that was a good segue into our later when we do give some more ideas. So the first couple slides, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on because we really wanna get to the burnout section, but I am gonna just read through here. These are some things that may be signs of stress in general that's happening. And looking at it, breaking it, cognitive thinking, emotional, behavioral, and physical. So for cognitive, changes related to thinking may include nightmares, confusion, trouble making decisions, trouble concentrating, difficulty remembering things, and inability to listen to others. With emotional feelings, changes in feelings may include increased or overwhelming fear, anxiety, depression, irritability, and anger, hopelessness or guilt. And survivors may also experience a sense of disconnection or not caring about things, as well as inability to feel joy or sadness. Behavioral could be startled, exaggerated responses, trouble sleeping, more arguments with others. I certainly know that around here with my family, throughout the years, I definitely had some check-ins from different members of my family letting me know, like, hey, you're just really cranky, you're really ouchy, you're really, you know, and I'm not realizing it, but like there's lots of stress happening and not realizing sometimes, or maybe realizing it, but not knowing what to do about it. So these are just some things, crying more often, angry outbursts, spending more time alone. And I see that a lot too with some individuals that I know that, you know, just kind of secluding themselves. Substance use may increase. Physical signs could be headaches, stomach aches, diarrhea, loss of appetite, sweating or having chills, tremors, all these other type of physical things that are on there as well. Okay, stress and worry. So this slide, because we want you to know that stress is not always a terrible thing. Stress can actually be a good thing when it's in small doses and when it's properly managed. So like, for example, on here, Some people, like athletes, actually really do well with that level of stress that they need to be able to come through in their situations with whatever. They're like runners sometimes, like different things that can actually kick in when they are more stressed to keep them running faster, or working better on a project with a deadline looming. I was actually like that with school. Probably could drive people silly around me, but I actually do work sometimes better on that deadline to be able to really kick me in. But I'm also super planner, so I've had to like kind of mix my sides of me there. But I can kind of love that too. Do you love to get up in front of an audience form? No, I do not, but I love doing it. Like I do it, but I love it, but I'm also super scared of it. So it's sort of a weird mix that I have there. But it does energize me to keep doing it. And I know the outcome will benefit others. How are incidences when a parent develops superhuman? Oh, so like whenever a parent needs to save a child, like there's these stories of people becoming like superhuman strength to be able to help that person. So stress can be a good thing. So just want to throw it out there that thought. Changing your mindset and how you think, stress and worry. Are your real expectations realistic? So are you, whatever you are thinking for your child, are you able to, there might be things that you think they should be able to do and they possibly can, but are you thinking way far in advance when we need to come back and help from others to get to that? Or maybe that is something they may never be able to do. So how do you help work through that expectation so that you're not causing so much worry onto yourselves? So again, helping with being, well, we'll get into the strategies, but do you need to realign your responsibilities, schedules, and expectations? You may have a lot going on. So like with your schedules and your child's schedule and your other children's schedules. So maybe it's thinking a little different on that and finding ways to manage that. Are you stressing about things that are out of control? Don't continue to do the same things, live the same way, and behave the same, and then be surprised when the stress levels stay exactly the same. So again, like if you're not able to see some of these things, you may be doing these things and it's causing you more worry and stress, when maybe there's some strategies that we'll give you later that can help with some of this. And then again, like I mentioned in the last slide, like maybe your stress can be used to advantage. And the same examples were given there. And that last one is, I kind of mentioned it in my last slide, but don't get stuck in the grumpiness, like realizing, letting other people kind of help you through things, finding those supports so that you're not stuck in that. As my husband says, you're really grumpy right now. So, okay. So Lisa is going to talk a little bit about stress being not the same as your stress.
Thanks, Beth Ann. And I mentioned this real briefly in the beginning when I said that, some of the examples of ways to handle self-care may be different for all of us. And that is the same case with stress. Things that may stress me may not be things that stress you, and vice versa. So stress is one of those things that is subjective. It really is in the eye of the beholder. Some things really push and drive people under stress, and other things, when individuals get stressed out, they retreat. They either become loners, or they may be chronic eaters, or they may be individuals who do the opposite, where they don't eat at all. So stress has the ability to impact us in various different ways, and we are absolutely individuals when it comes to stress. And stress always, not always, but also impacts our children as well. So we have to keep that in mind, and they deal and cope with stress in different manners. And again, what may work for us may not work for our children. So we may have to be also thinking about what ways can we help our children manage through stress as well. And so when you think about some of the types of stress, like indicated on the slide, it could be paying bills, it could be death of in-laws, it could be meeting deadlines. And I'm like Beth Ann too. I am very much of a planner, but I also really work well under pressure. And sometimes I feel like I do my best work under pressure. And so everybody learns little things about themselves and how they manage with stress, and you do what really works best for you. So going to the grocery store can be stressful for some people, and particularly in this last year and a half or so in a pandemic where, you know, we all are struggling with so many different things. And so going to the grocery store can be extremely taxing to us. So just recognizing that your stress, and for those families that may have spouses, recognize that your stress will not be the same as your spouse's stress. So again, it's very individual, and the needs to address and or improve upon are very different as well. Next slide, please, Vivian. So taking ownership of some of those stressors and the frustrations that derive from those stressors. We all experience them, but certainly in different levels and in different capacities. So some things that can be very difficult for us, but frustrating as well, that we really have to own is, you know, meeting those deadlines, daily living, the health and wellness of our children is highly important. It can be stressful as well, and that can be physical health as well as any other special needs our children, whether they are young or adults, may need as well. And then looking at mental health, and certainly the educational challenges have been very, very difficult for a lot of families. Dare I say almost everyone, because going through what we've been experiencing for the last many months has been definitely a challenge, whether we were doing in-person school, hybrid, or completely learning from home. So the education setting can be tenuous under normal circumstances, and particularly during the pandemic, we have all had some challenges that we may also work with and support families that have been dealing with a lot of different challenges, and really haven't had a successful educational experience over the last year and a half. And we may identify that, you know, our kids have maybe fallen behind. Some of our kids may have lost some of their gains. So those are some of the things that may be adding to additional stress for families as well, because we recognize during this time, kids have really struggled as well as adults. And we need to really be able to identify where those deficits are, particularly for our children that have been brought about, particularly due to COVID, not necessarily experiences that may have come with daily living, but the fact that we were going through a pandemic and how that pandemic really has changed and affected our lives may have caused some things that may not have shown themselves previously to be brought to the light. Next slide, please. So, speaking of the pandemic, so life during the pandemic can be rough, and even though there are opportunities to be seeing the light in some cases, while we are not completely out of the pandemic, I think in some cases, again, I think this is a very individual experience. Everyone continues to still be at different stages and journeys in their life. And so some of the things that can have impacted us during the course of this time and going forward would be, you know, housing concerns, food insecurity, financial needs. There are time constraints, and daily living looks a lot different because for the most part, we were all home all the time. So that wasn't the daily typical experience for us as the adults or the guardians in the family. And it was not the typical experience for our children either. So there was some adjustment that was required along with that process as well. There was the fear of getting COVID and what would happen, you know, if that would be the case, or fear of losing someone during the course of this pandemic time. And so the loss of a loved one is very taxing, particularly due to the circumstances. And I know from personal experience, I have several friends, sadly, who lost, in some cases, 6 family members, and I have others that have lost 10 family members in a very short period of time due to COVID. So it is really important to recognize that all of these things, everything about our lives has changed. And while we may be seeing a little bit of light, again, it's my opinion that things will never be quote unquote normal again. It will be the new normal. And what does that new normal look like? And working from home and now maybe shifting back into, you've got to go into the office maybe, a couple of days a week. So that again is another transition, another stressor, another adjustment for families to have to cope with as well. So you just want to be mindful of how all of these things have impacted your lives. Next slide, please. So how to deal with what seems like is becoming normal. And what I mean by that is the things that we are experiencing seem to be the norm because of the current situation we are living through. While it is temporary, we don't have a timeline on what we are experiencing. So adjusting and coping and managing and using coping skills is highly important throughout this time. And again, particularly for us, and I'm going to continue to keep adding in recognizing the need for children and how stress is impacting them, and realizing that the importance of self-care for us as the adults, the responsible parties, but self-care is required for children as well. And as much as we need to check in with each other, we should also be checking in with our children as well. Letting go of the things that you can't control. And this is huge. It's easily said, but not also easily done. And so just recognizing that, sometimes you have to stop and just ask yourself, if this is something that you have the power to control, you have the power to turn it off and on, you have the power to say yes or no, you have the power to say, your children will or they won't. And in those times when you do not, we just have to just let it go and go with what is actually going on and manage the things that you can and move through the things that you cannot. Work hard to find balance, and it is difficult to do again during the time that we are in. And we all have been in this for a while now. I may have found a groove that really works for us, but it's important to find balance for ourselves as the adults of our family, and we are the leaders of our family, but also finding balance for children between, being chronically in the house all the time because we're not going to school and we're working from home. And so when is the downtime? When is the playtime? When can you step away from the laptop? And now I'm talking to myself. And when can we, have some downtime to play? So finding balance is important as well. Practicing compassion and just having understanding for others, and knowing that we are all in different, while going through these experiences, everyone is, we are all at different stages along the way. And so giving grace is really important, to give grace to yourself and give grace to others in your family. And then embrace the good things that are happening. And it's important while going through what we are currently going through, find the good things and hang on to them. Highlight those good things, point them out to our children along the way, and point them out to yourselves, and recognize while we are experiencing some challenges, there's some good that's coming out of this process as well. We're having additional family time together. We're having more meaningful, hopefully, conversations because we have more time together. So there is some benefit that is coming out of this, while be it forced time together. It has changed our schedules, and therefore we have more time together and make it more meaningful and create those amazing memories as well. Next slide, please.
Great. Caregiver burnout, what it can look like for some. So before I go into talking about this, Lisa, thank you for the reminder about finding grace for yourself. I say that often throughout just the last year, but beyond. That is something I try to remember. So it's good to hear it again. you know, we're not going to do this all perfect. It's caregiving stuff. So give yourself some grace. So thank you, Lisa. So what can caregiver burnout look like? It can be a roller coaster of emotions, can be a sign of burnout. And I know we talked about that in that first slide, or with the which picture speaks to us. So definitely the roller coaster can sometimes speak to me. Caregivers experiencing burnout may begin to isolate them from friends and family. And I noted that somewhere else in one of the earlier slides as well. I can be guilty of that as well at times. An increased or decreased appetite can be a warning sign of impending burnout. Difficulty sleeping or feeling exhausted despite a full night's sleep can be warning signs. Definitely for me, that one is a lot of lack of sleep. I sleep very well in the beginning, but wake up wide awake at some point at it's usually around the 4 o'clock hour, and my mind is just going with all the things. So yeah, definitely can be a sign of feeling burned out. Feeling unexcited about things you used to enjoy can be an indication that you're experiencing burnout. The next line says, use online screening tools to gauge your stress and burnout. And in following slides, I actually have one that I found I thought was pretty decent to gauge your stress. And I kind of smile because I'm like, sometimes I'm thinking, I don't think I really need that online tool because I feel it. But there's other times where I think it's a very good thing to say, oh, wow, I didn't realize I am. So that's just, I'll share that in a little bit. Watch out for irregular habits. So just things that you just aren't, normally not an issue that you're doing. So, maybe they're increasing and you're like, whoa, what is this? If you're overwhelmed with negative thoughts, it's time to take action to reduce burnout. So the next slide, Lisa's going to talk about kind of what we say and what we actually mean.
So many of you may have seen this slide done in several different ways and utilized for several different meanings. So in this case, consider this iceberg, and above the blue line really is sort of where 99% of us really live. So when someone asks you how you're doing or how are things going, most of us, particularly those of us who are either working in this field or have children with high needs, again, whether they are minor children or adult children, we've learned over time to say the common phrase, we're okay, I'm okay, or everything's going well, knowing full and well in that moment when you're being asked, you may be in the middle of a crisis. And again, I know this well personally, and have really mastered working under pressure. And in this case, referring to working while going through a crisis. And so I want to really encourage you to look below the blue line, which is internally. These are the things that are going on with us inside when we are verbally responding with the we're okay, or I'm okay, or everyone's okay and doing fine. But we may be emotionally shut down. We may be going through a crisis ourselves, or one of our children may be going through a crisis. And in some cases, our grandchildren, because I have 5 grandchildren, and they have some challenges too that may interrupt our day. You're having difficulty finding joy in the moment, and that can happen when you're dealing with constant crisis on a regular basis. Finding a moment to just exhale and breathe may be difficult, and therefore it impedes our ability to find a level of joy. I don't feel safe or comfortable self-disclosing where you're at. And sometimes when we are going through certain experiencing, disclosure becomes something that we are very closed off to, and we close off our heart, we close off our mind, and we don't allow anyone in. So it's important to understand this is a great example to use in the process of self-care, where when you're going through things all the time, again, through personal experience, I've learned, particularly when my children were little and someone would ask me how I was doing, I guarantee you I always had a story. If they ask you how you were doing, oh, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for the ride, because I've got one for you. And after a while, I realized everybody doesn't always want to hear that. So sometimes when people ask you how you're doing, it's a common courtesy thing, and not that they don't want to know if you're okay or that you're doing well, but it isn't always appropriate to just unload every time someone asks how you're doing. And when I would do that, I found that I started having self-talk conversations, and I would tell myself, Lisa, everybody just doesn't want to always hear everything that's going on. And so I learned different things to say other than I'm just okay when asked that question, even though I know internally there's a whole lot that's really going on. So it's important to recognize where you are in the place of when you're being asked how you're doing and if you're okay, or how your children are doing and if they're okay, and find ways to respond to that question that may not necessarily be considered, I'm going to use this word fake because it was the first thing that came to my mind. When I say fake, I mean that you aren't being honest about where you exactly are. So being able to own your emotions and your feelings in that experience of being asked, we'll find a phrase that may be able to be honest about where you really are, but it also doesn't mean that you have to unload and say, sit down, well, let me just tell you, what Johnny did today and what's going on, and that kind of thing. Next slide, please.
All right. I was thinking while you were saying that, those of you that are on Facebook, there's a little section that says, what's on your mind? I always think there's not enough space on there. I would be typing for years. So if you know what I'm talking about, I hope you smiled at that. But sometimes, yeah, that I'm okay. Yeah, you may not be. So what are reasons for caregiver burnout? Caregivers may have, and I mentioned this before, kind of like those unrealistic expectations. You may actually be, earlier when I was talking, it might have been about your child, but what about your own role? Like, are you able to do all of those things that will impact their loved one's happiness? You may not be able to. You may need another individuals or supports or whatever. So those are the things to keep in mind. A lack of support system may contribute to caregiver burnout. Caregivers may neglect their own health and well-being, which can lead to burnout. The care burnout is often caused by stress, but it can have dangerous consequences. We really aren't going too much into this, but we touched based on whatever slide that was about like what stress can look like and what it can do, but it can have an can't think of now, a really big impact on your body and your different physical health. So again, this is why we're here today, to kind of help then provide some of these resources to help you. A lack of resources can contribute to caregiver burnout. So hopefully, again, we can provide some more for you. Juggling multiple roles adds to caregiver fatigue. And the information that I took this from, I actually have an article, and it'll be in the slides, in a couple of more slides, that you can go look more into depth of these. But like that's a big one. How many roles are we all doing? I mean, Lisa, we were talking just between us, mom and this in this school and this whatever, like all these things. We could be sister, brother, whatever we are. We're all so many things, and we're a parent or we're a family member, grandmother, all these things. So it's a lot. Juggling multiple roles. Yeah, that's a big one. Conflicting emotions can be difficult for caregivers to cope with. So there's a lot of feelings. I'm like, it's all the feels. That's what I always say. A lot of stuff happening. I'm happy. I'm not really happy underneath that, but I am because I'm happy. Or if you have multiple children and you can feel these great things for one child happening and then all this other stuff happening for another. It's like, it's a lot. You want to make sure everybody's getting what they need. If you're an overachiever or a perfectionist, you may be more likely to experience caregiver burnout. That's a big one for me. Even the fact is being a social worker and a mom, trying to figure out like, oh, I know stuff, quote unquote, and trying to fix whatever wasn't happening or should have been for my child. At one point, honestly, I realized, like, even though I work as a social worker, I needed to have CPARC help me with some of the education pieces because I just couldn't. And I needed to have, at the time it was Cindy Adams, come in, but there's so many other wonderful people too now that helped with other families. So thank you, CPARC, little shout out. Okay, so this slide, I think is still me, yeah. This is another way just to look at like what Lisa was saying, the like I'm okay slide, when what could really be happening. So there's this thriving, and if you want to look through those, and again, you'll have the access to these slides, but there's surviving, where you're just kind of like, something's not right. There's struggling where I can't keep this up. In crisis, I can't survive this. I promise at the end of our slides, we will be talking about some resources for our area, and being aware that not everyone's just from the Cumberland and Perry area. We will have access to other counties as well on those. And so moving on to how to avoid caregiver burnout. So this is always my favorite, because I'm always like, there is hope, just wait for it. We're coming to it. So some of that other stuff can sound like, oh, a lot of heaviness there. But how to avoid it. And even if you're into it right now, if you feel like you're in burning out mode, making sure you get breaks for yourself. It's so hard. I don't care if it's a minute, 5, whatever, find that time for yourself. And that's hard for me throughout the years too. But I'm just saying, like, even if it's a tiny piece, and we'll talk a little bit more on like these breaks can look like for you. They don't have to cost anything. So we want to get into that in a little bit. Set reasonable expectations for yourselves. I've said it a couple times, even for your children, for yourself. It's okay to have those high reaching goals, but also do them in chunks. Make sure that you're looking at things that are reasonable for you as well. And know that you can get help to help meet those goals. Find someone to talk to, a friend or a counselor. That again, like finding your people. I always laugh. Like this morning, one of my friends reached out to me. She's like, "Hey, when do you want to get a pedicure?" I don't think of those things. Like I need somebody to kind of help me, like get it, and it doesn't have to be a pedicure, but whatever it is. I have a friend who will go get me a slushie throughout my life. Does it similar like things, but being able to talk to somebody that's your people, and if you don't really know. I don't really have that. I mean, there are counselors, there's supports out there, support groups. I know Parent to Parent, and there's some grandparent kin connector. There's so many other groups out there, and I'm sure CPARC has more additional ones too that we can provide if you need. Ask for and accept others, help from others. Well, I'm also going to mention, I don't know if there's a chat. Can someone read the chat? I just saw a little number come up.
Yes, it was Megan indicating that she had to head out, and she was thanking everyone for both sessions were really wonderful.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then CPARC, I know they have their advocacy groups and their different trainings and different things. Like all of these things are ways you can meet others, maintain positive relationships with other friends and family. I know that can be a stress sometimes with family and friends, and your life being completely different than theirs, and this high level of stress, and that can have some different outcomes sometimes than what you're hoping for, or you may have isolated yourself to not reaching out to the family as well. There's multiple different reasons, but if you can, like, trying to be able to reach out and try to maintain those relationships. Set boundaries, huge one, terrible at it. I have Lisa sometimes. I mean, I honestly have called and we talk through things, and I won't get into all of them, but things that I'm like, okay, I know better. I shouldn't have given it on to that one or this or blah, blah, blah. But even time restraints of things, I say yes to a lot, and it's hard. So try to think about yourself of like, take care of you, because again, you can't take care of others if you're yourself not doing well. Stay on top of your personal health. That's a big one for me too. I'm always like, oh yeah, forgot about that doctor's appointment. So like, I don't miss them, but it's like hard for me to remember to do those things. So making sure you do that. Recognizing your limits. Again, that's for me. Learning to laugh. That's a big one I actually do. use relaxation techniques to cope with stress. And that can be so many different things. You know, I don't have prayer on here. I should have it on there. That's a big one for me. Relaxation techniques, been through many different trainings with those. And we'll talk more about some of the actual ideas in a little bit. Don't lose sight of you. That's a big one. Now here are the two, there's two links on there. The one is that stress meter that I mentioned earlier. If you want to, you can see where it gauges your stress. That's the bottom one. And the other one is where I took a lot of this information from for these last couple of slides. So feel free to check out those sites. All right, Lisa.
All right, so as we've both been really talking about burnout and what it looks like and the importance of doing something about it, we wanted to just share just a quick slide with you and just around some things that you can do. And I am really a big proponent of doing those things that don't cost any money, because there are times that when we think about taking care of ourselves or taking care of someone else, it usually involves, you know, getting in the car and going somewhere to get something or to something to do something. And I really encourage you to think about those things where you don't really have to spend any money, like making yourself a meal and your favorite meal, taking a walk, going to the beach when you have the ability to do that, listening to music, reading, working in the garden, you know, just taking a shower or a warm bath, and, you know, just decide that you're going to this evening, you know, take a bubble bath. You know, if you're going to be the only one home, take a bubble bath, put your music on, light some candles, relax in the bathtub for a little while, read a book. You know, those kinds of things that I encourage you really to do. And one of the examples that I use in another training that I actually have done is I usually have participants write a letter to themselves with 3 things that they're going to do for themselves in the next 30 days. So you write yourself a letter and include 3 things that you're going to do. And then usually I will have them put it into an envelope, and in 30 days, I mail you back that letter. And then the next time I see you, I want to know, did you actually do those 3 things in the last 30 days that you promised yourself that you would do? So, I mean, you could take that same example and either write it in your journal if you journal, or write yourself a note and tuck it away in a drawer somewhere where you can come back to and give yourself a timeline, whether it's 2 weeks, 30 days, what have you, and ask yourself if you've really taken the time to do any of those little things for yourself. But it's important to really, particularly if you are a busy person, if you have multiple children or tons of responsibilities, and most of us are wearing multiple hats, we really want to carve out that time intentionally to be able to take care of ourselves and do something to fill our tank. Next slide, please. So recognizing grief you're going through because of these times, and it was important for me to add this slide because there is a level of grief that we are all going through, again, because of the time we've been in for the last many months, and not even necessarily grief around maybe having lost someone, but grief around the loss of our prior quote unquote typical living, normal living, the daily living that we were used to beforehand, the options that we had beforehand that we may not have any longer, or those options have changed because of the new normal we are living under. So recognize that there is a level of grief, a level of loss that we have gone through because of all the changes that we've experienced. Recognize that our children are experiencing that level of loss as well. We want to mitigate that in some way, but the first step is really owning the fact that there are some challenges, and recognizing that you know, whether it's for ourselves or for our children, how are they adjusting? Are they adjusting? Do you see changes that are going on with them, and take the opportunity to engage with them around how they're doing and checking in and how they're feeling about the constant change that we've been going through over the last several months. And so it's important to recognize that there is hope, But in recognizing that hope, we have to honor the frustrations of the process. And so grief is a part of the process of change and loss and growth. We want to recognize that there is hope. And in honoring the hope, we have to honor what we're feeling and what we're experiencing. Next slide, please.
Right. The next couple slides, I'm going to kind of just go through quickly because of time, but also because we've kind of been touching on some of these throughout. But managing the physical effects of burnout, taking care of your overall health and body, get enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours for adults. I need to work on that. Eat a healthy diet, drink water, be physically active, and take movement breaks during work and stretch at your desk. So again, some of these slides are just, if you want to come back and look at them, but they'll be on here. We have a lot, like mindfulness techniques. I'm not going to go through all of this, but a couple of them, I remember my youngest son telling me one time, Mom, do soup breath. And I'm like, what? And he learned something in his daycare about breathing, smelling the soup, and then breathing it back out or something like that. And I remember him telling me that. He was trying to remind me, Mom, calm down, take a moment. And so it's like, these are things that we can do for ourselves, but sometimes our children are watching and they may tell you. So there's a couple there. The social supports, again, I mentioned this, learn to say no. Wait, did I jump on you, Lisa? No, not yet. Okay. Learn to say no if your responsibilities get too overwhelming. Delegate work. Seek out counselors online or in person. A big thing right now is online options that weren't here a year and a half ago. So, you know, I've seen benefits to families being able to reach out a little bit quicker than what they may have in the past. And then Lisa mentioned it, the disconnecting from whatever, phone or whatever. There's another one. Turn off the electronics, stop looking at social media. Just take time. I don't know, paint, whatever it is, whatever your time, your hobby is, find that moment. Find someone to help you have that moment as well. Organizing your stress, with taking tasks and putting them into little smaller ones, organizing and scheduling your day. And so you'll be able to manage your stress. If you schedule stress, you might be able to manage it better. Take short-term goals for yourself so you can accomplish those and have temporary pause in your stress. And this one is Lisa. Thank you.
So what can we do to overcome frustrations? And so before you see a word cloud with lots of words that are ways in which we can either describe self-care or implement some self-care. And so you can think about exercise or sleeping or resting, and what do you do for your mental health care, and taking a mental health day. So one of those other simple examples I often always use is, going on a vacation. And I don't mean literally going on vacation. I mean sometimes taking a 10-minute break and go on a vacation in your mind. Take a journey to the beach. Revisit some memories that were very fond memories for you that you've created with family members and friends. Or think about some place that you would really love to go and go on an excursion in your mind. All of those things allow us to take a break from what may be going on within our daily lives, but also allow us some time to exhale and to breathe. So self-care is highly important. Again, we will continue to reiterate, and I'm going to probably assume for most of us in this session today, we haven't quite mastered it. Some of us are really good at it, and some of us are still on a journey to it, but recognizing that self-care is important. And one of the things that Ann had mentioned earlier was taking care of personal health and for ourselves. And I'm going to reiterate that because it is something that I struggled with over the years. And when you have children with high needs, sometimes you forget to really take care of yourself and get your yearly exams and get yourself taken care of. And I know, there's a period of time I literally just lost self because I was so engrossed in the needs of my children and appointments and services were not local. So we were all over the state of Pennsylvania. We lived in a car. And when I say that, I mean, we were just on the road all the time for services all over the state that, you know, there wasn't really time to consider me. And I'm encouraging you to consider you while you are still going through all the things that we are trying to do to best serve our children and families. Next slide, please.
All right. Holly, I don't know how much time we have. Are we like 4 minutes or less, or do we have a little bit of time?
We have about 15 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. So this slide here is a self-care checklist. If I don't care if you come off, since there's not a lot of us on here, but if you want to come off of mute and say, you know what, some of you have already done this. Are there any on here though that you're like, yeah, that would be a thing that I would do, looking at this list?
Buy yourself flowers. I do that.
Oh yeah.
Every week since the pandemic started, because
Wow.
I couldn't do, and I started, doing my orders on Aldi's, and their flowers are cheap. They're like $3.99 to like $5.99. So I started buying myself flowers.
I love that.
I love that. Like seriously, it gave me like little goosebumps. I was still that idea.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
And it doesn't even have to be on the list. Is there anything that you do for yourself that you are intentional about? Jean says in the chat box that she definitely plans a fun day once a month. I like that idea too. That's a really good idea.
Work on that, declutter your home. That looks a little crazy around here over the last year. I got to work on that.
Does anybody try to?
Yeah. So this is a list, and then
hold on,
go ahead.
because I think I saw Holly.
Sorry, yeah, I discovered Netflix this year and just really would like binge watch, but decluttering, it's not as intentional, but if I do that, I feel good. Like, yeah, so just certain areas, it doesn't have to be the whole house, but.
Right.
No, I get it. That could even be my car, because I live in my car a lot. Like, again, like Lisa said, running around, not living in it, but sometimes I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? But it looks so much better once you fix that up. Thank you, Holly. Okay. Okay, so here's a list. Obviously, this will be for you to take away to slides. But if you're just not sure, and a lot of those, they don't have to be, there's no money involved in some of these. I mean, now I laugh at the gardening because I can put a lot of money into it once I get out there. I'm like, oh, I want to buy that. I want to, whatever. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. All right. So this, I'll see if this works. I'm going to show you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Beth Ann. I was just going to add something that we sometimes don't think of, particularly those of us working in this field or those of us raising children. It's okay to, if that self-care time is time away from your kids, taking a break from your kids, because trust me, they need one from us too. So it is important to be able to do that. And I'm not necessarily, everyone knows their needs of their family. So, maybe you cannot do that for a day, but try to build in a schedule and start small. And maybe it's 30 minutes or an hour, but it's important to be able to take that time apart and make sure that, it is refreshing for both of you. So as you plan that time for yourself away from your children, it's important for them to have that time as well.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to try to see if I can share. So on well, that's not going to work. Okay, so I have a newsletter up here that I've created. It's Remembering Your Self-Care, and I can see if I can try to do it really quick. I don't know if it's going to work from here. I thought I had it up in the background. Okay, so I created this, and I share this out to whoever wants it. So far, 99 people have seen it, but it's sort of like taken from one of our earlier trainings that we did. There's virtual calming room on here. These are fun. You can go to a zoo at any time of your remote day and check out different animals. Here's another virtual calming room. There are the self-care
Yeah, it's not
ideas that we've
showing.
mentioned. They're up on here.
You'll have to share a
And
different page.
it's not.
If you go to share and then look
Oh,
on your computer, it'll be a different page.
Yeah. Oh, I feel so sad that that didn't work. Let me try that again. All right, maybe, does that work? Do you see it?
Yes.
There it
yes.
is. There it is.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's the mass oxygen thing that I talked about. Lisa talked about that. We have the virtual calming room. So you can click on these little bubbles right here, buttons, I guess they're called. There's another virtual calming room. And then here's some of the slides that or some of the graphics that we've shared so far. And then these are different options. So here's like mindfulness. And then I have up, and we'll get in a little bit more, but here's where you can find some coping with crisis. I have all of our IU areas. So that's Dauphin County, Dauphin, Cumberland, Perry. I have Franklin and I have York on there because those are our major IU areas. So I have that, and then substance abuse connections as well, National Suicide Helpline. So I have a bunch of different things up here. So that again will be shared with you. Here, I'm going to stop share and go back out. But that's my quick way of saying, here's a link to go and look at some of the stuff we're talking about. Back to my slide. Hopefully this gets back to where I was. Okay. Wow, I'm getting better at this after a year and a half. Okay. So then we have some protective factors. We've mentioned a lot of this already, but if you want to look through those, I know Lisa said about the recording 3 good things. I think it was like 3, however you said it, Lisa, I'm sorry. And then a bunch of the other ones that we've talked about. And Lisa, this was yours as well, kind of back to what we were saying earlier.
Just really looking at some more ideas and ways in which you can do some self-care and things that work for you. Again, this is very individual and very specific and designed really to be so it can meet your needs. One of the things that I do, and I started actually at the beginning of the year because it was a New Year's resolution for me, is that every day I write down 5 things. I put it in my journal. But you could also collect them in a jar. But I write down 5 things that I'm thankful for. And I make them, they are never the same 5 things. So I rarely repeat the things that I'm thankful for because it pushes you to think about literally every part of your life. And so I do my best to not repeat things over. Things that I have occasionally repeated, of course, would be like family, children, grandchildren. But I really try not to repeat them more than once or twice either. So it pushes me to think about the other things. Like I'm thankful for the sun today. I'm thankful for the rain. I'm thankful for a specific friend. I'm thankful for friendships. You know, just think of, 5 things that you're thankful for. And for me, it's very enlightening. And sometimes when I'm having tough days, I go back to my journal and I look over those things that I'm thankful for. And it's just a great reminder of all of the ways that we are frankly blessed in our lives, despite whatever situations we may be in. We are blessed individuals.
Mentioned these already, I got ahead of myself, but there's the calming rooms, and one of them is made by one of our social workers at the IU, and the other one on the top is one we found throughout just searching. We have the 3 good exercises up there. We do encourage you to try this. So thank you for that idea, Lisa. And then our local resources. I put up on there again, I created another ARCs in the area. So if you clicked on that top link, you're going to see the different ones throughout our area. Of course, we have Sea Park up there, Parent to Parent. There are so many more. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, maybe Holly, if you guys have lists too that, you know, they can access as well. I was just going through really quick this week, the ones I
Right.
generally use.
There's community links to get to
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely. Yeah, I forgot
Cumberland
about
County.
that.
And there's actually, and I've just learned about it, but PA 211 is a
Yes.
website.
Oh, I can't even believe I didn't put that on there. Yes,
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
I'm
Yes.
actually on it's a reentry coalition to help people leaving prison. And my subcommittee is trying to work on that page. It's not easily sometimes navigated and it's missing some things. We're not even on there. So
Oh.
it's like, hello.
And
You can find some things on there too.
Well,
And
even
give us a
calling
call. We
211.
never, even if we're not your source, your resource that you need, we try to give you who you need to get to.
So I will tell you that on my community agency and resources does have 211 on there. So if that's, I mean, that's a huge one I give to families. I mean, you can just call them and start spouting off all your stuff. And there's someone there that's trying to help you, you know, try to navigate, you know, my brain. But yeah, like it's definitely a resource that I cannot believe I don't have it. It's kind of technically on there if you click on the next one there.
Right.
The coping with a resource, I mentioned that earlier, that one's going to have like all of our local counties. And then to go to the next slide, then we have some more like national prevention suicide toll-free lines are on there. Let's see. Oh, Lisa, I don't have it on there. The text 741-741 should be on there as well. I don't have that on there. I know I have it on our other slide, like when you click in to the IU stuff. But these are all resources that anyone can access and look into. Some of them are in Spanish as well. Lisa, do you have any more that you would add to these?
I think that there are tons of resources that are out there, and you've highlighted some major ones that are easily accessible and utilizing those resources. But I would encourage you, if you do have a need and or questions, as Holly has suggested, I would reach out to CPARC, but you are also welcome to contact Bethany and I as well. We sort of hit multiple counties across the state. So sometimes when things aren't available in our local county area, we also have those options to share some resources from across the state as well. So you're more than welcome to email me or call me, and happy to help you in any way that we can.
And I know I mentioned the 741-741. That's a big one. You can text to, and I find that youth that I'm working with, teenagers, tend to sometimes want to use that more than maybe talking directly to the toll-free numbers where you can call someone, but there's someone waiting to text back. And so that's been a very big success in helping youth, but also adults. So definitely remember that. I'll try to remember to put that on here. So thank you from Lisa and I. Do you have any questions or anything?
No, we thank you so much. It has been a year. It's always a stressful year. Nancy said that's so great. Nancy, I just want to let you know you're our winner of the Amazon prize, by the way, we do a random number generator and Nancy's name came.
Congratulations, Nancy.
So if you can send an email to Lisette Johnson and let her know what your address is, we'll get that in the mail to you.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, it's been a wild year. I'm sure everyone here, you know, even professionals have been dealing with the pandemic and all the stresses. But I hope everyone found some new ideas, you know.
Thank you,
And we encourage you to remember to put yourself first, because your children's lives depend on you putting yourself first.
I think sometimes families have trouble reaching out and taking help from other people, and you have to. You just have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a plug for something it's a long way away. Next May, Lakin Wilson, and I don't think I introduced myself. I think I know most people, but I'm Holly Turner, the Director of Advocacy at Sea Park. But Lakin Wilson, our Senior Advocate, and Kelly Smiley and the other staff are working very hard on a face-to-face seminar, actually workshop conference next May that is all about caregiving, burnout, and taking care of yourself. In fact, it's going to be called Treat Yourself. And it will be a face-to-face during the day, Saturday seminar with all kinds of just really good ways to pamper yourself, as well as hearing from some speakers and access to resources. So get on our list so that you can hear about that. It's going to be a great day. Be nice to get back to some face-to-face too. Although Zoom is always nice, you don't have to drive.
I know. That is one thing I'm going to really miss. Being able to just, but then again, yeah, I need people. Thanks,
Yeah.
Molly.
So, all right. Well, we thank all of you. Any questions? No, and we will have your permission to send out your slides to everybody and make sure that everyone gets those. So that
Yep.
will be happening too.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I'll
Thank
add,
you, everybody.
thank you, everybody. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jean.
You too.